In the minds of millions, the image of the Japanese samurai is often tied to a sharp katana, unyielding honor, and unwavering loyalty. These warriors are romanticized as noble figures, willing to live and die for their code. But what happens when we strip away this idealized image? What happens when history is told not by the victors, but by the blood spilled on the battlefield? Samurai, a bloody legend, is a journey to uncover the truths behind the gilded armor. From the massacre on Mount Hiei in 1571, where thousands of innocent men, women, and children were mercilessly slaughtered, to the battles in Korea with bodies piled like offerings to the god of war, this is not a story of beauty. It is the brutal truth, and it must be remembered. Hello everyone, today, we will embark on a journey through a site of samurai history unlike any you've heard before. We won't focus on the majestic images of warriors riding across fields or dueling in glorious honor. Instead, we will uncover a darker reality, a part of history that is rarely mentioned but crucial to understanding Japan's warrior class. Picture a day in September 1571, atop Mount Hiei, home to one of Japan's most sacred Buddhist centers. A fire rages, not a sacred one, nor ceremonial, but a fire of war. Oda Nobunaga, one of Japan's three great unifiers, ordered thousands of soldiers to descend upon the mountain in an instant. Ancient temples, Buddha statues, and sacred sutra symbols of centuries of tradition were turned to ash. The people fled in terror, their feet bloodied, scrambling up Mount Hichoji, trying to escape death, but they couldn't. Soldiers swarmed from all sides, shouting battle cries. Monks, lay people, young children, the elderly none, were spared. Every head was severed, every plea was drowned in blood. And when the soldiers presented the severed heads to Nobunaga, they proudly declared, "This is a respected Grand Master. This is a revered scholar." Even those who could only beg for mercy, women, the young, the old, were not spared. The sight of bodies piled at the foot of the mountain, like discarded logs, was beyond description. This is where our story begins. A truth few want to acknowledge: the samurai were not just symbols of honor and integrity, but also cold-blooded killers, capable of brutality that defies belief. In popular media, the samurai are often portrayed as paragons of virtue, heroes who follow a strict code of ethics, known as Bushido, living and dying for honor, protecting the weak, and showing absolute loyalty to their lord. But is this image accurate? The painful truth is that it's not. Bushido, as we understand it today, wasn't a universal code during the samurai's time. It was formalized much later, in the Edo period, when Japan had no wars left to fight and needed a moral model for education. During the Warring States period, the samurai's main concern was victory. And to prove their worth, they sought proof: the severed head of an enemy. The ritual of headhunting was not just a cultural norm, it was a system. Each head brought glory, rewards, and status: gold, silver, weapons, land, and titles. Samurai often went to great lengths to claim a head, even lying or cheating to elevate the status of an insignificant soldier, to claim credit for it. Headhunting wasn't always about honor, it was about gaining the upper hand. Some warriors rushed into piles of corpses to quickly cut off a dying man's head, while others cut off ears or noses as proof of victory. The samurai off the battlefield weren't the stoic, disciplined warriors we often hear about. After the battle was won, their bloodlust was unleashed on the weak, looting, raping, burning villages. In the invasion of Korea, 1592 to 1598, Japanese soldiers left behind a bloody trail. One warrior, Yoshino Jingo Zeman, wrote, "The Korean people ran toward us, clasping their hands and begging for mercy. But our troops cut down every one, men, women, children, even dogs and cats, like a sacrifice to the god of war." Some records claim as many as 85,000 people died in this carnage. Seppuku ritual suicide. By disavowal mantis, another aspect of samurai culture often romanticized in films. While there's truth to the idea that samurai would commit to preserve their honor, the reality was more complex. Not all warriors chose to die for honor. Many preferred to flee, as living to fight another day was far more practical. Seppuku itself was a grisly affair, and in some cases, warriors didn't even have the privilege of a swift beheading. Some chose equally brutal methods, like in the naval battle of Dan-Uura, 1185, where warriors tied stones to themselves and jumped into the sea, committing suicide. When the samurai were not in battle, they were still far from peaceful. In times of peace, power struggles, bloody schemes, and ruthless executions came to the forefront. One such story involves Toyotomi Hidatsugu, the nephew and adopted son of the great unifier Toyotomi Hideyoshi. After Hideyoshi had another son, he feared that Hidatsugu might become a threat. So, he spread rumors that Hidatsugu was plotting a rebellion, leading to his arrest and forced seppuku. But the bloodshed didn't end there. Hideyoshi ordered the execution of dozens of people, including Hidatsugu's wives, children, and servants. None were spared. In one brutal stroke, a whole family was wiped out for fear of a newborn child. Then there are the Nagasaki crucifixions of 1597, where 26 Christians, 20 Japanese, and 6 foreigners were brutally executed for their faith. They were nailed to crosses, pierced with spears, and left to die slow, painful deaths. These executions were carried out by samurai who, despite their brutal history, chose a Christian-style execution to set an example for those who dared to challenge the feudal order. The samurai of the Edo period, despite a lack of war, maintained their power through fear. Public executions were common, and people could be killed for even minor offenses, stealing, speaking against the government, or resisting authority. The samurai were not just warriors, but also judges, executioners, and police officers who enforced the will of their lords. The samurai class was contradictory. On one hand, they learned the art of tea ceremonies, wrote poetry, and followed a code of conduct. On the other, they could behead a child without hesitation. They professed loyalty and honor, but were also willing to betray their master for personal gain. They despised merchants for their greed but did not hesitate to plunder. So, how should we view the samurai? As noble warriors or ruthless killers? The answer lies somewhere in between. The samurai, like other warrior classes throughout history, were shaped by the time in which they lived, an era where survival often meant choosing violence over virtue. Bushido, the idealized warrior code, was a product of propaganda created in the Edo period, long after the samurai had ceased to fight wars. It became a tool for educating the masses in the values of loyalty, discipline, and sacrifice. Despite their brutality, the image of the samurai continues to captivate us. They represent strength, courage, and a willingness to live and die without fear. But this image is only part of the truth. The samurai were both heroes and villains, capable of poetry and brutality, of loyalty and betrayal. History is never as simple as it seems. To understand it fully, we must look at both the light and the dark sides. The samurai were not just mythic warriors. They were also human beings, shaped by their time. And while they embodied loyalty and discipline, they also embodied the cruelty and cold-bloodedness required to maintain power. Thank you for joining me on this journey. If you found this video thought-provoking, please like, subscribe, and turn on notifications. See you in the next chapter of history, where legends are told through the light of truth.